Business, a podcast for all those subjects we've been trained to avoid. Here's your respectfully irreverent host, Keith Shelton.
Hey, good evening, everybody. We're so glad to have you. I'm Keith Shelton. I'm the one that started this travesty of a conglomeration here. Just want to tell everybody we're so thankful you're joining us tonight. We're so excited about our special guest tonight. But before we bring him on, where's my co-pilot? There he is, my son JT, my co-pilot, flying with me.
I hit the go live button, so when you're ready to turn it off, let me know. I'll be in the other room, okay?
I don't think so. Well, listen, y'all, tonight's special guest is Rick Clarke. He's a Mississippi baseball coaching legend. He's coached hundreds of great players like Ricky Chisholm, Terry Woods, Chad Bradford, Efrain Morales, and many more. Rick has coached 31 seasons, amassed over 700 wins, 41 championships, 26 championships at Magnolia Academy, 14 championships at Hines Junior College, and 1 championship at Pearl High School. He and his junior college teams have made 4 World Series, JUCO World Series appearances in Grand Junction, Colorado. His team, his 1989 team, was the first Mississippi JUCO team to ever make it to the JUCO World Series. Rick is the author of Rick Clarke's Diary of a Mad Baseball Coach. That's a collection of over 200 stories related to life, faith, legacy, and it goes without saying, baseball. Without further ado, here is the man, the myth, the legend. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Rick Clarke. There he is.
Thank you so much,
Hey,
Keith.
Rick.
You're going to be my agent. I promise. That's great. I need an agent. That's
Rick,
good
I
stuff.
don't have quite the repertoire, but I did stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night.
That's fantastic, man. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Can't wait to share some things with you tonight.
Well, Rick, let's get started because, we know you have got so much that you can share with our listeners and our viewers. So let's start off by just simply asking the simple question. Where'd you come from and how'd you get to where we are today?
Man, I'm an old South Jackson guy. I was born in Jackson, Mississippi, and lived there all my life. And as far as baseball goes, I didn't start playing baseball until I was 13 years of age. I had no interest in it whatsoever. And then I started at 13, and I'm coaching youth league baseball at age 16, and begged my father to keep me out of Vietnam and let me go to college. And so I went to Hines Junior College and transferred to Mississippi College and got my degree. And before I graduated from MC, I became the head baseball coach at Magnolia Academy, a little bitty private school in West Jackson, in 1976. And we put together a pretty good high school baseball program there. And that's where it really all got started. My dream job was to go to Hines Junior College, which eventually became Hines Community College. And that eventually worked out. I had to take a detour a couple of times to do that. But I've had a great career in coaching and just love to share some stories with you tonight. That's what the diary is all about.
Are you sure you didn't start earlier than that? I found this video I thought was you from back in the day.
No, but I'll tell you, but I'll tell you what, it reminds me of my youngest son, my oldest son, Josh, because when he was, 5 years old, 6 years old, all the way up until he got too big to do it, he was playing baseball behind our dugout at every Hines practice and every Hines game. And he coaches at Hines now, so it worked out good for him. That's funny stuff.
That's quite the legacy.
Yes.
Well, Rick, tell us a little bit about your time at Magnolia Academy. That's where obviously you and I went to high school together. You were a couple of years ahead of me.
That's
so
correct.
we knew each other.
Yes.
Knew of your family. But, when you graduated high school, you are flying 800 miles an hour in all sorts of directions.
That's right.
But I heard about Rick Clarke coaching Magnolia Academy. That's what put me on your radar, or put you on my radar screen. And man, I was a follower of yours from then on. So
fantastic.
Give our listeners and our viewers a little bit of background there on your high school career.
I appreciate that. Of course, I played for the legendary Bill Moose Perry at Forest Hill High School. and got a lot of baseball experience from doing that. And to be honest with you, when we Coach Perry and I didn't get along real well in the 3 years I was there. I would fight him, he would fight me, and he was a tough guy. And so originally, when I got into coaching, I said, I'll show the old man how to do it. That's what I said. And now it's dwarfed into morphed into the great respect for Coach Perry, and I'm into coaching only because of him. But Magnolia Academy was, it's 1970s. It's when all the private schools, all that time we went through at Forest Hill as well. But it's a little school that had no real tradition in baseball. And somebody that I knew said, you ought to go over there. I think, looking for a baseball coach, they need to make some changes. And so I'd coached youth baseball for quite a time and had some good success doing that. But it's just summer baseball. But anyway, we went over there, and there was a bunch of great players. And it's back in the days when the kids used to go outside and play. And they were great athletes. They just needed a little guidance and a little direction. And so what we did is we went in there with some crazy tough stuff. And I was going to tell you that the motto at Magnolia Academy was we focus on discipline, consistency, and sound fundamentals. And it was real tough on those guys. I had great expectations for what we were going to do, and just being able to do that and get that going got us to where we started playing some really good baseball. And through the years, we ended up winning 168 games in 6 seasons. We won an unprecedented 26 championships in that period of time. We won everything that we played in. And then we won 31 games in 1979, and we won 40 games, the first high school team in Mississippi to ever win 40 games in the season. And that's hard to do in a high school season. But it was really a great experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Now, that 40-win season for a high school team, that record still stands, doesn't it, in Mississippi?
Well, the record's been tied now. It's been a long, long time. It's been 45 years. This is the 45th anniversary of our 1979 championship at Magnolia Academy, and it's the 35th year for the Grand Junction group that we took out in '89. So it's a lot of great anniversaries in 2024. But
you said it's been tied, but it's never been broken.
It got tied by the great Magnolia Heights teams up in North Mississippi. But listen, it's been so long. It's been 45 years. Nobody even knew that Magnolia Heights tied a record, set a record, whatever. They just won their championship, and they won 40 games. And I had to remind everybody that the first team that did that was Magnolia Academy back in 1981, when it was well ahead of its time. And even a great team like Jackson Prep for years and years and years, they won 39 games this year. So they even didn't tie the record from that long ago. So it's a tough thing to do, but it was a great accomplishment for that particular time. I got to tell you that.
Well, Rick, let's talk a little bit about the foundation that was laid back in those days.
Yes.
I was talking to somebody, I guess it was this morning, and we were talking about all the great SEC teams. Division I. Well, they all got Mississippi ball players on them.
That's right.
That start.
Right.
They're not bench sitters. They start.
That's right.
Then you got Mississippi State, Ole Miss. They're full of Mississippi players.
Mm-hmm.
And before we move to JUCO, let's stick in high school. You got so many high school players in Mississippi that get drafted straight into the pros. They're so good.
That's true. Well, there's a first round guy.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I don't. I'm so far out of the game. It's been 20 years, but I'll tell you, there's a guy.
No, I'm talking about the foundation.
The great players in Mississippi. Mississippi has a great foundation. Pope came in the late 1970s up at Mississippi State, and Mike Kennison took over for Marchant and Boo Ferris at Delta State. There's been great baseball teams and a great high school programs that have fed players into those programs.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was the thing is it starts at the high school level, and when somebody like you sets a standard, you and the players you had at Magnolia, I mean, that's a standard. If you're going to be the best in the state, you gotta be thinking in terms of that's what championship baseball has to look like.
Well, it's always been like that, even since the day of Forest Hill when Stan and Stuart Clyburn were the big stars that ended up in the major leagues from high school baseball in 1972. Now, baseball has changed so much in the current day that you can't even compare the two. So yeah, we're talking about olden times, but that's all we had at that particular time. So it's a bigger monster now than it ever has been before. But Mississippi has great high school baseball, great baseball players. And I was name dropping Connor Griffin from the Jackson Prep, who's probably going to be in the next few weeks one of the top 10 picks in the Major League Baseball draft. He's a senior at Jackson Prep, signed with LSU early, and he's either going to be a professional baseball player that gets a great bonus to do that, or he's going to go to LSU, and now they actually can get a pretty good bonus to play college baseball with NIL and all those kinds of things. But they're great players like that. And we grew up in a time when I first started coaching at Hines where the Jackson area had great baseball schools. You think about not only just Magnolia Academy, but Callaway was a powerhouse. And the old days when Jackson Central was a big powerhouse, and then Wingfield became real strong, and Jim Hill was real strong. And there's some great players that came through there.
St.
Joseph with Coach
had
Howard.
some tough teams. Yeah.
It's changed. Jackson doesn't produce the kind of baseball players that they did in years past. But so it's a little different. That was my recruiting district, was the Jackson metro area. Back in the old days at Hines when we had residential districts that players had to come from. So it was a hotbed for great baseball in Hines County and Warren and Rankin and those type counties.
All right. Well, let's talk about your JUCO experience. How'd you get it? How'd you wind up at Hines? Obviously, it wasn't like you were an unknown after you'd done what you did at Magnolia. How'd you end up at Hines Junior College?
Well, I played at Hines. Hines had stopped playing baseball in 1958, and they did not start again to 1973. And a group of us got together and started petitioning for the reinstatement of the baseball team in 1973, and went to Coach Renfro, who was the athletic director, and Danny Neely, who became the baseball coach at Hines in 73. And we started baseball again in 1973. And I played at Forest Hill, went to play at Hines in 73 and 74. But just to let you know something about JUCO sports, those coaches stay there for a long time. I stayed at Hines for 22 years when I went there, but these jobs don't turn over very often. But Coach Neely had a business opportunity in 1982, after the 1982 season, and he was going to get out of coaching. And so, in my cockiness at that time, I'm saying, well, I'm a player at Hines, alum at Hines. I've had a great coaching career up to this point. I got a great chance to get that job. And I lobbied for it and petitioned for it, did everything I could to get the job. But Bill Marchant, who used to coach at Meridian High School, went out to Texas and coached at Lufkin and Texarkana High for years out there. Had worked for Dr. Clyde Muse when Dr. Muse was the superintendent of schools in Meridian. And so I didn't have a chance because Bill Marchant had worked for him then, and he was going to come back and work for him now. And so I had Coach Perry introduce me, because I'm jobless now. I'd left Magnolia Academy and was pursuing other things. And so I had Coach Perry introduce me to Coach Marchant. And his wife had stayed in Texas, and he was going to be by himself. And so I asked him, does he need a volunteer assistant coach? And so we roomed together in a brand new apartment at Sheffield Woolley Dorm. Developed a great friendship. And I knew before that year was over, although he had a great season, 30-7 in his first year, that he was not going to stay. And so I became a squatter in that apartment. This is my joke. I became a squatter in that apartment, and they wanted that apartment back so bad, I got the head baseball coach at Hines in May of '83. That's really a true story. I really believe that. I'm making a joke about it. I really believe they wanted that apartment a lot more than they cared about the baseball program at that particular time. Now, they made me coach football, and I just got married in June of '84. We're coming up with our 40th anniversary next week, my wife and I, Patty, my wife. And, I said, I really want this job. And Bill Buckner, who was a head football coach and led Mississippi FCA for so long, he said, well, Rick, I'll help you get that job. I'm doing my Bill Buckner impersonation. He said, Rick, I'll help you get that job, but would you coach? But would you coach football? And I'm not a football guy. I'm just a baseball guy through and through. And so, I said, I'll do just about anything if you'll let me coach baseball here. And so I made a decision that day. I said, I am going to try to be the best baseball coach I can possibly be, and at the same time be the worst football coach that I could possibly be. And I accomplished the second one a lot sooner than I accomplished the first one. But that's where it all started. I had my first team at Hines in '84, and we kind of had a little plan there to get some players in there and win a state championship in the first 5 years. Well, in '86, we got better in '85. We were 24-19 in '84. And in 85, we were a pretty good team. And in 86, we won the South Division Championship. And really ran into some great pitching in the postseason play. We could have won our first state championship in 86, but 87 was different. We won another South Division championship, and then we played Mississippi Delta in what I still believe is the greatest JUCO series, a state championship series in the history of junior college baseball. Now, nobody would know that except me and Coach Thompson, who coached at Delta. So we won the state championship in won 2 out of 3 in that series. We won 2 in the series, swept the series. And that was Hines' first state championship in 37 years. So that was a big, big deal. Same thing in 88, won the division again, 3rd year in a row. Played well in the state playoffs again, got buzzed down by some great pitching and didn't win there. And then the 89 season rolled around with the merger between the Hines and Utica baseball teams.
And that's what
greatest
this
story
photo is right here, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. That's a group of a bunch of guys with great brotherhood. A lot of people would take that merger. Let me just go back up and tell you that.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It was a Hines Community College district, and they had taken in Utica to support Utica, a little small place way out there. And there were sports teams on both programs, the Utica Bulldogs and the Hines Eagles. And they decided that they would merge the athletic programs, and they'd leave football at the Raymond campus. They would leave take basketball down to the Utica campus and leave softball and baseball at Raymond. But they never consulted the baseball coach at Hines about that one time. Never told me about it. Never asked me about it. And then Coach McQuitter, George McQuitter, who coached at Utica and had some great teams down there, really had his team stripped from him. So any of the problems that we had in that beginning of that 89 season was just trying to create some chemistry, because I'm not a real smart guy. I went to Forest Hill, but I knew these things about chemistry. Number one, with the right chemistry, you can send a rocket ship to the moon. But with the wrong chemistry, that thing will blow up on the launching pad. It blow up on the launching pad. So we had no chemistry. And a lot of people in the newspapers, when they did newspapers back in those days, would talk about it, it's the black and white and the merger and this kind of stuff. And they're struggling because it's black and white. And it really was never black and white. White coach, black coach, used to be head coaches, now are associate head coaches. I thought that was a great title. It didn't bother me one bit. But it was about chemistry. And we got to about mid-season. There's a great story on the diary there that talks about the turning point. I'll explain that a little bit more later about that. But that turned the season around. We created a great brotherhood. People started playing with each other, and we went on a run that nobody had ever done in the history of Mississippi Junior College baseball. Certainly state championship. That's great. Regional championship. That was our first regional championship in '89. Then we had to go to South Carolina and play what they call a district championship. And in that tournament was Lewisburg College out of North Carolina, and they were the perennial team in that region at that time. And so we had to go over and win that tournament just to get to the World Series, but we did it. And so it was a history-making thing. And since that time, and I've got this on the blog as well, that there have been 9 different Mississippi teams that have been to a World Series since. Mm-hmm. And this baseball league in Mississippi is so good now that the regional has 6 teams, and the winner automatically goes to the World Series now. So that's how good Mississippi JUCO baseball has become over the years. But it all starts with Hines. Anybody that goes to a World Series has to know that Hines was first. Before anybody else, before Meridian went 7 times with their powerhouses in the 90s, 80s and 90s. Hines did it first, and we did it against all odds, and it worked out real great for us. I'll never forget it.
In the middle of the merger, too.
Yes.
Yeah. Learning new players having to learn you, that sort of thing.
It happens every year, JUCO. Everybody says, "Oh, we're young this year." We're always young in junior college. There's always a big turnover.
Exactly. You only have two
always new
classes
people
to play. Yeah.
So we've got to put it together pretty quickly. But we did that. But it was the turnaround was absolutely amazing. When we got time, I could really tell you some great stories about that '89 team and how that made history. It's a history-making Hines team. I've got the thing in my museum garage out there of a great display of everything that the 1989 team did. It's absolutely awesome.
What'd you name that garage again?
It's the Clarke Museum, Baseball Museum and Garage. Just trying to be funny. Just trying to be a goofball. I'm a guy that has a TV in his garage. That's the way that works.
Sure.
We've got everything, all the Magnolia stuff, all the Heinz stuff. My son was a great baseball player, got his great stuff. And my youngest son was not a baseball player, but a golfer, and the Hall of Fame at Clinton High School and stuff. All those things are in the museum.
Well, I was scrolling through earlier on some of your stuff, and I found this. I wanted you to maybe tell us a little bit about this. What is the Big Four?
Let's talk about philosophies of what we try to do to get these guys to compete. At Magnolia Academy, it was the motto was striving for baseball excellence. We didn't care about any other kind of excellence at that school. I was a baseball coach. I didn't care about the classroom stuff. I didn't care about checking dorms at Heinz. I just coached baseball, and that was my deal. So we were striving for baseball excellence, and the motto there was the goals were discipline, consistency, and sound fundamentals. And so all these teams from Magnolia Academy on, the word discipline came into play, and the definition of that was just doing things the way they're supposed to be done. Mm-hmm. And then I blended into Heinz. I started talking about, well, what are the essential attitudes? What are the cornerstones for success that we just absolutely got to achieve, not only in baseball, but also in life as well? You guys, you business guys, are using these same Big Four in doing your jobs. And so the way I would explain it, and it's uncomfortable when you would do it in front of a lot of people with some ladies in the audience, because somebody said, "Oh my gosh, he's talking about the balls," But
that's determination.
There's an article on the blog that would explain that. But I wanted a picture of a brain, because what I would do, I said, what we need is what's up here. I'd point to the brain, and that symbolizes confidence. Mm-hmm. And confidence means that, you could be like that little engine that thought he could and say, I think I can. Eventually you'll merge into, I believe I can. And eventually what you want to do is, I know I can. Mm-hmm. And in baseball, you got to know you can on every single pitch of every single game. The mindset has to believe that I believe I can, even though I know that I sometimes will not. And then move to the next pitch and start it again. So we just reset to that. So the brain was talking about confidence, and confidence just means I really believe I can do what I'm being asked to do. It's a key to life, I believe. The heart, I wanted a real working heart there. The heart is not just a pump, but it's the hub of personality and emotions and character and everything. And the Bible is filled with talking about the heart. But this symbolizes motivation. And motivation really simply says, I really, really, really want to do this. And there's some things that you really, really want to do, but you don't have the confidence to do it, and it doesn't work well for you. So they got to work together. Mm-hmm. Motivation is kind of like this. If you really wanted to do something, nobody could keep you from doing it. And if you really didn't want to do something, nobody could make you do it. So motivation really must come from within. And motivation just means what makes you take action, what makes you do the things you got to do to get what you want to get.
If your heart's not
you sound like Bobby Knight.
Well, a little clean.
Yeah, he was my hero in basketball. So.
I had my times back in the old days when I talked frankly, privately to my players, and used some probably inappropriate terms. This is not one of those things. Well, the determination I'm referring to, the intestinal fortitude, as I refer to every now and then. This is a universal term for sports. This is where your great determination comes from, your willpower comes from. I think that I think determination is the strongest thing that a person has going for them, that you will not be denied, and no matter what the situation is. Mm-hmm. And so you start this all with discipline, and then you've got confidence and motivation and determination, and you put them all together, and you've got that term toughness. Toughness is what we strive for at Heinz. It's what we had at Magnolia Academy. We just didn't know what to call it back in those days. But I got a definition, if you don't mind me reading this to you. Sure. A definition of toughness that we created for our players. And I'm so old, I've been out of the coaching so long, I can't memorize it. But it's toughness is the ability to perform well on each pitch, regardless of the situation or circumstances. It doesn't make any difference what's going on all around you. You can get focused back into this pitch now and expect success. The circumstances would be maybe the score. You're way ahead and you let up, or you're way behind and you give up, or the level of competition that you're playing with. The tough teams we tighten up on, and the easy teams we don't try hard enough. or who's pitching against you. It may be that great guy throwing 95 miles an hour today. Well, we've got to figure out a way to be able to be able to compete in that circumstance as well. The who's pitching against you, the bad umpires, losing the game, getting yelled at by your coach, self-perceived pressures, or any distractions that may cloud your thinking and your ability to compete as you were designed to do through your character, your confidence and your motivation and your determination. And that's what toughness is. And that's a long definition. Basically, it means that no matter what's happening, you can still do what you have to do. And that's what toughness is. And you can name players probably on one hand that fit the bill for that. I've got quite a few.
Did any of these principles and foundations that you set, do you see that carried by any of your former players into their lives?
I really do. Now I see my old Magnolia guys quite a bit, and this is 45 years later that I see them, and they tell me all the time. And I they got to be nice to the old coach, right? He's old, and they got to say nice things about him. But these guys that have become great in business, that are millionaires now from Magnolia Academy. I had a couple of players that said, this guy has no chance to be successful in anything in life after we get through playing baseball. And he's a multi-millionaire insurance guy. And all these guys will say that these things that we're talking about here, these success principles, the cornerstones, the essential attitudes, if you will, are things that they use every single day in their business and in their personal life. And I really believe that. I try to teach my 6-year-old and 9-year-old grandsons the principles of confidence, motivation, and determination without them giggling at what the balls are, but that's the kind of thing with that. I told you earlier that I have an eagle on my desk that I had from my office at Heinz, and it's got a ball sack keychain hanging down from the bottom of the eagle. It's just, my son just laughs when he comes in and says, "Oh my good gosh." But those ball sack keychains, and they're really trucker keychains, I guess you say, but it's a symbolism of toughness. And so I would send some to certain players during the year. I had a guy on the blog talking about a guy named Warren Guerrero, who 36 years after he was probably the biggest big game pitcher in Heinz history, was awarded at my house with a ball sack keychain to symbolize his toughness. I sent one to Andy Lee, who's probably one of the greatest ladies softball coaches in junior colleges. He was at LSU Eunice and won 7 national championships. He's one of my former players at Heinz. Bill Spaceman Lee's son, by the way. And then he's at Northwest Florida right now. And he had done so well that I dropped him a ball sack keychain in the mail. And I did it to Eddie Lofton, the former baseball coach at Clinton High School, that moved to Meridian. I saw where he was flying on the coast with the Blue Angels.
Oh, my gosh.
Afternoon.
Wow.
And so the very next day, by express mail, he got a ball sack keychain. But it just symbolizes toughness.
FedEx overnight.
It's not trying to be naughty or anything like that. But that's a universal word. If you played sports, you know what that means. We apply it in everything we do in everyday life, and I think it's awesome. And so we try to create some little things like your picture there that you showed that kind of symbolizes those things.
Well, yeah, that's an awesome breakdown. I'm glad I could take some of that and probably use some of that in some sort of leadership course down the road.
Well, I'll send you some ball sack keychains. Give me your mailing address.
Well, let me earn it.
Yeah,
well, just give it to me.
I did that. I got to laugh about my son Josh. He coaches at baseball now, and he's a great baseball coach. I mean, he's just ruined. That's all he'll ever want to be. And he got to Heinz, and it kind of got me back into, after 15 or 16 years, go watch Heinz play and make that be something that I do in the spring. And so when he was at Bellhaven coaching with Hill Denson, he had a pitcher, and I think the guy's still playing over there. This is years later. I mean, he's been there for 20 years. But one night in a postseason game out in Texas, I forgot where out in Texas we were, probably east. I can't remember where it was. But anyway, this pitcher went 14 innings, a starting pitcher, 14 innings, and gave up 3 hits and struck out 18 and won the game. Nobody does that anymore. But Nolan Ryan is dead. I mean, nobody does that kind of stuff anymore. And so I gave a ball sack keychain to Josh. I said, "You got to give that to him. That was the most awesome thing I've ever seen." And he says, "No, I'm not going to do it because, he thought it was something other than what it meant." But that's what it means. And that's what we're trying to say by that. And I don't hold back from that at all.
Rick, I got a question from a viewer. They're asking, what are your keys? What are your keys to building a champion team?
Well, I think you got to get people that love the game, people that really want to play baseball. we see right now my 6-year-old's playing coach pitch stuff, that kind of stuff. But for the first time in this little all-star thing they're playing, I'm seeing this guy. He loves the game. Now, my 9-year-old grandson doesn't like baseball, and we try to let him know that just because Granddaddy Pawpaw was a baseball coach, and your dad's a baseball coach, you don't have to play baseball if you don't want to. That's not a problem whatsoever. But you got to have kids that really love to play the game, not that they're made to play the game. And that's the first thing. Starting off like these guys right here in the picture, just going out there and knocking each other out, and just having fun doing that. But really, it just takes. First, it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of developing sound fundamentals. I think that's overlooked in this day and time. Everything's got to be done in a certain way. And what drives me crazy now watching baseball now is that everybody watches the big leaguers, and everybody from little league to junior college to the guys in the World Series in Omaha right now. Everybody catches a fly ball with one hand. Everybody kind of jogs to the ball and tries to be cool, and everybody's got to celebrate everything. And so they lost focus on real good sound fundamentals sometimes. I think that's the key. And then the key is to get out there and work hard at it every single day. Baseball is a real hard game to play. And so some kids are going to be able to play and some people won't. But you got to give up some success. I think coach pitch is great. But I tell my 6-year-old, in 3 years, they're going to be trying to get you out for the rest of your life. How are you going to be able to deal with that? And so it's those things. Yeah. But you gotta support them. You gotta breed confidence in those guys. You've got to have some way that they want to do this, and not that they're made to do this. And I see players all around that have turned out to be great players. And some people play, and when youth league baseball is over, they're done. And it's okay. So sometimes you have to. Coach Howie used to tell me, the old St. Joe guru would tell me that when he'd have to cut a kid sometime because he wasn't very good, he would tell the kid, he said, "It's not really your fault. It's your heredity." See, you didn't have what it took. I don't know if that answered the question, but the kids got to love to play it, and they got to want to play it, and they got to get outside and play it. It's harder to do that in this day and time. Everything's organized. Everybody's got a team. Every dad's got a shortstop batting in a 3-hole on his own personal team. And then I get those guys in junior college, and I got to undo half that stuff. So just be reasonable about it. Yeah, just be reasonable about it, and let them love it, let them play it, and see how it works out. Some will stay with it, some won't. Some will sign a pro contract next week. That's how crazy that is.
Hey, Rick, let's talk just a few minutes about a mutual friend of ours, Mike Kennison, Delta State.
Yes.
Team manager.
Oh, yes.
And goes on to become a Division II All-American.
He needs a ball sack. I never have sent him one. There's nobody like Mike Kennison. And we coached at the same time, not at the same places, but we coached, and I watched him. We have great mutual respect, good friendship with him. But as I noticed, as I got older and got ready to kind of say, the guys were changed a little bit. I think I'm going to retire and find some other things to do. And Mike was still driving at it, still competing, still winning championships and whatever. And he's just driven, and he never lost his love, and he never changed. Mike Kennison never changed with the times. Mm-hmm. He's still the hard-nosed, in-your-face guy with great demands and wanting everybody to be the best they can possibly be. He uses the confidence, motivation, determination deal too. Yeah. Not necessarily those words, but that's the key to success with that. I got to tell you a couple quick stories about Mike, if you don't mind. When I left Hines in 2005, and I left for I had a little conflict that I just decided I'd just go ahead and be a principled guy, and I'd just go do something else. And so I left there on my own terms. But to show you how principled and stupid I was, I left Hines 3 years before I got my PERS retirement. I needed to find 3 more years of something. And so I went to Pearl High School for a year because they paid an $18,000 supplement to coach baseball. I said, I'll take it. I'll do it. And we'll go out there and do that. And so we were going to do a preseason banquet at Trustmark Park in the cafe in the right field corner down there. And I invited Mike Kennison, and I said, I want Coach Ferris to come too. I want you both to come. And they came, and it was a great banquet, and I really enjoyed it. Coach Ferris actually spoke then before he got a little older where he couldn't. And then years later, I went back to Hillcrest in 2013, been out of coaching forever. But I told my son Josh, who was graduating from Belhaven, let's go coach together. Let's take my eighth grade son out there. We'll have the biggest time in baseball ever in your first year. And it was the biggest disaster known to mankind. Didn't work out too good for us. But Mike spoke at that banquet too. So I left Pearl after the first year because I made some big shot mad, and he said, "I'll get you," and he got me. And I left Hillcrest on my own accord because it just wasn't the right place for us to be. But the thing I'm joking with Mike about is that he spoke at 2 banquets, and I lost my job within 3 months after he spoke. So that's the deal with that.
Goodness.
One more quick Mike story. When I retired, my wife said, "You got to find something to do." And this was before I started our real estate company. And so I started driving travel buses for Mississippi College athletics. And it was I had the biggest time. I knew coaching friends over there that I got to travel with. I loved watching softball and baseball and tennis and volleyball and the cross country team. I really enjoyed that. We stayed in great hotels. We did a lot of great stuff. But one year I got to drive the baseball team several years ago to Delta State for the Gulf South Conference tournament. And Mississippi College had a new coach, and they were doing really, really well. And they went up there to play that tournament. And I was watching Mississippi College play Delta State. And I noticed the 2 coaches had the exact same mannerisms, except when Kennison would go to the mound, he'd stomp on the line as he crossed the third base line. Everybody else kind of hops over the line so they won't break their mother's back or whatever that is.
Yeah,
that's the only difference I saw in those
is.
2 guys. I saw Mississippi College beat Kennison for the Gulf South Championship up there at Delta State. And then both teams got to go to the same regional, and we drove down to meet the flight to pick those guys up in Lakeland, Florida. And we got stranded by rain down there for 9 days in the meth capital of the world down there, it seemed like to me. And here's my joke about Kennison. It's not a joke. I'm sitting on a hill in my bus watching our game finish, and Mike is going to come up walking, and he just lost a game. He's in the loser's bracket. He's got to play MC again, okay? And he's walking up the hill, and I said, he's not even going to look up because he's mad about losing the game. And so I said, I'm going to speak to him anyway. So he walked by the bus. And I said, "Hey, Mike." He looked up and said, "Hey, Coach Clarke," and put his head back down and kept walking. He was the most intense competitor ever, even to the last day he coached. And I'm sure he is as an athletic director, too. This is the Mike Kennison show now. Thank you. I didn't mean to go so long with Mike. Tell Mike I'm saying good things about him on the air there. But anyway.
I hope he's watching. I hope he'll see it.
That's great. Well,
Mike and I,
there's none better. None better.
Is that not just unbelievable?
Yeah, absolutely.
A manager. I think it was his sophomore year, and by the time he finished, he was an All-American.
Big Four. He had the Big Four. Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
And I got to watch him. Him his junior and senior year because I was the same class as him. They had Stewart pitching. Mike was playing shortstop. They had Thigpen. They had some really horses. You
remember
Ferris was the coach.
You remember that Marchant was coaching up there after Coach Ferris, and Mike didn't have a job at that time. He had some problems at prep, and he's coaching at Madison Central High School or something like that. But Bill Marchant had a Jeep accident and was paralyzed from the chest down, and yet continued to coach that team in a wheelchair and went to the World Series 2 different times. Mike stood in there as his assistant coach, like a big guy, without an ego, and coached with great loyalty for Bill Marchant. It was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And another thing about it, I'll say on the Mike Kennison show, is when he won that national championship and took the trophy and crawled up in the bleachers to find Boo Ferris. If you've never seen the video or you've never seen the picture, that is the most classy thing you will ever see anybody ever do. And that's how much he loved Delta State. That's how much he loved Coach Ferris. That's how much he loved baseball. And I'm proud that he's my friend. I wish I could have been as good as he was. I wish I could have lasted as long as he lasted.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're going to take a quick ad break and a word from our sponsors for the show. When we come back, we're going to take a look at a couple of stories from Rick's Diaries of a Mad Baseball Coach.
That's
and then
great.
we're gonna do some safer outs first when we come back.
And we have a special segment set up just for the man, the myth, the legend, called Safer Out. So we'll be back in just a moment.
Sonora Shelton Fine Art is deeply grateful for the support and encouragement from Nobody's Business podcast. Your passion for showcasing the stories and accomplishments of others is truly inspirational. Visit my online gallery at sonorashelton.com. And thanks again to Nobody's Business Podcast for being a part of my artistic journey.
All right.
Welcome
back, everybody. All right, Rick, we got a special segment for you here, bud. This is called Safer Out.
Okay.
We've got a couple of little short videos, and we want you to tell us whether you think
give us your expertise,
whether you think they're safe or whether you think they're out.
That's out.
All right, you ready?
Ready.
All right, here we go. Here's the first one.
Jeez.
If that's not a good enough angle for you to see, hang on. I got another one. Is that?
It looks like the hand slid in there.
Hang on. Sure. Let's freeze frame that. What do you think? Safe or out?
Maybe out.
Wait. Look at the second baseman's glove. Look at
it's just an uncomfortable slide there, isn't it? Goodness gracious mercy. Let's go to the video. Let's go to the videotape.
I'm gonna say he's out.
He's out.
He's knocked out if he ain't out.
Yeah, that's good. That's right.
Let's see. What about this one?
I think he jumped over him. I think he leaped him.
That's a quick thinking on your feet.
Either that or he got his cleats hung up and just couldn't help himself. That's some crazy stuff.
What about this one?
Oh my goodness. Safe until he goes over.
He was for a second. I don't know. He might need to get a concussion.
Hey, it's been funny watching in the World Series up in Omaha. These guys have been playing on turf all year, having trouble figuring out how to slide on dirt now. They're getting tied up in knots like that as well. That's good stuff.
Let's see. I got another one. Let's see.
Oh! He kicked it up in the air. That is crazy. And you gotta love that all these games on videotape, and you can pull all this stuff out and go to YouTube and get what you want to. That's some really great stuff right there.
Right. Let's see. That's he's at home. He's safe, huh?
Yes.
There you go.
Safe.
That was all I could pull together for the show.
Listen,
but I had a couple of good little other ones that I found.
That's great.
That was awesome. His glove got knocked clean off, but he caught. Now, is that a catch?
That's a catch.
Okay.
He catch you with anything that's on his hands or his glove or both or one. Let's see what
oh goodness. He was just right in that blind spot, wasn't he?
If the guy stole it, it ends up being E2 right there. Goodness gracious. You could just sit around and just giggle and laugh at this. Oh, poor umpire. Goodness gracious.
Now, tell me what technique this is.
I don't, man. People have some of the funkiest
Is that
batting.
something? Is that a new state of the art?
Is that yeah? Looks kind of like Ichiro did for a little while, but when he first started playing, Pete Rose had the little squatty thing going on from both sides for a long time. So that's some funky stuff. Hitting is getting a barrel in the right place at the right time.
This is
hard to do that. Oh,
did you ever teach any of your guys to do this?
I've had people do that. We didn't exactly teach that, but yeah, yeah, that's good stuff too. That's fantastic.
That's all I could pull together just in time for.
There's just some great, crazy things that happen in a baseball game. I really do. I told you earlier about the Savannah Bananas. My grandkids have been watching on TV. And they do some circus catches out there, like flipping over backwards, catching fly balls and stuff like that. And I hope my grandson doesn't do that this weekend when he tries to play.
I don't know what happened to this guy. I think
my gosh.
I think you knocked yourself out.
He passed out on the way here.
The head first slide has its advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the major disadvantage.
Oh, yes. That is a serious disadvantage. Freeze frame.
Golly.
Oh my God! Probably broke his neck. How did you break your neck? Anyway, I'm not the biggest fan of this video replay stuff because I used to like the face to face with the umpires. I enjoyed that so much, and now that's pretty much been eliminated from the game. You can't yell at anybody. You can't put on a show. It's all funny stuff. But,
well, from back in the day when you could, do you have some great stories?
Well, I got thrown out of a lot of games, but I never got thrown out of a game we had a chance to win. I'll just say that. Never cussed an umpire, never treated an umpire anything other than loud and obnoxious. And so, and some of them were not real good, and you just have to do what you got to do, for your team. But anyway, it was all good, fun stuff.
Well, back to the topic at hand. I've been scrolling through your stuff. There was a couple of items on here that piqued my interest. If you wouldn't mind going into them,
sure.
And I think you probably covered a little bit of it, but the first one I saw was ball busters.
Yes, that's where I got the freedom to do the ball sack keychains, and it came from an article. Scroll on down there. It's passing testicle forward to. Is that the one that says? It's Ball Busters. That is an article from ESPN magazine. And go to the blog and read that. That's copied and accredited to ESPN magazine. It just talks frankly about how we use that terminology in baseball. Got some funny stories even about football players. Eli Manning in his center having some. You have to read the article. It's just too deep to go into. But that's where that came from. That's always been. Read the first sentence up there, JD. I don't have it in front of me right now. Let me see if I can find it. What they're saying about in the first sentence. Let me see if I can get it real quick. Hang on one second. Where are we going? Ball Busters. There it is, right there. Then I'll have to break the glasses out here. Under Ball Busters, it's the first sentence of the paragraph there. It says, this great article. Let me scroll down to find that again. This great article explaining what we already know. The most influential yet least discussed biological component relating to male sports performance. Yep, balls. That's what it is. That's where I got the concept from. And that article was, I can't even see when that article was written. 2011. 2011. We were talking about that a long time before 2011, but they verified it and tell some great stories down through there. So if you get a chance to click on there, you go to the menu on the right and click on Ball Busters, and that's where that kind of comes from. But
so what is the story behind the toughness of an eagle?
The toughness of an eagle. Where is that? Is under the same page there?
Yes, sir. Under the Ball Busters.
All right, let me find that. Review myself real quickly. What we're talking about there, because I clicked on that earlier. This may be just talking about postseason play. There's my picture. Can you scroll and see the picture of the Eagle trophy with a ball sack? And it's just talking about the prominence of the Eagle symbolizing toughness. And what I was doing there for the Heinz guys was a commercial. They don't allow me to speak to the Heinz guys because, Dad, times have changed, and we do it differently now. And so I just wanted to explain what toughness was. So it just gives a definition. I use Eagle because we're the Heinz Eagles, but that's real stuff. And we actually had some players that really. And a great comeback in our season where we were dead in the water at midterm and then ended up in the regional tournament and scared the number 1 and 2 team in the country a couple of times. That's some great, including 5 home runs against the number one team in the country, in a 14-13 losing cause. But that's some great stuff. I was going to tell you about Josh, my son, as a young coach wanting to prove himself, doesn't really like to get his dad's advice, especially unsolicited advice. And so the first year he coached at Hines, I said, okay, I'm not going to bother you. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. And so anyway, what I did, I started writing a blog called Observations of a Savvy Baseball Coach, or Savvy Observations from a mad baseball coach. And I would just watch a game and write down what I thought. And he had to read it, and it was fun. So I got my message across. This is how we used to do it back in the old day. And this is how you guys do it now. So times have changed, but, it's still baseball. It's still hit field throw around.
We didn't have participation trophies when we were
No, we did not.
Coming up,
no, we did not at all. But anyway.
I was shocked when I started coaching, kids and YMCA and summer league teams and, participation trophies. That was so foreign to me.
What I don't like right now, and I'm sure my grandson is going to go through this, is they give these guys these gigantic rings. We made such a big deal about winning a ring going to Grand Junction, and everybody gets 45 rings in a box by the time they start playing junior college baseball. So at least save something for the big boys. Hey, JT, click on, if you would, in the over there, scroll down to the bottom of the menu, and it says stories 1 through 10.
Yes, sir.
Let's just put that on the screen and let me just kind of speak to some very quickly. I know we're running out of time here, but let me just speak to some observations. These are the first stories that I wrote for the blog, and I had thousands of stories that I could have written, but I said, I'll start with this one. And the first one down there is number 1, and it's called The Poetry of Ron Miller. And Ron Miller was a guy at Clinton High School, was an older gentleman who was kind of like a volunteer coach and a mentor for all the players, but he always told dirty stories, when he get the kids together out there. There once was a man from Nantucket and that kind of stuff. And so the mothers would say, oh, no. But anyway, he wrote a poem about my son, Josh. My oldest son, Josh, who's the coach now, was a great, great pitcher. There's Ron Miller on the left, and there's Josh on the right with his skinned head there. Josh was a guy who threw about an 88-mile-an-hour fastball way up here at the top, and then he threw a knuckle curveball that came from the same slot. You couldn't tell the difference, and he had a devastating split-finger fastball. And so I'm going to click on the link there and click on the link and look at this poem. It's a 4-line poem. It's a masterpiece, and Josh just loves this. It says that Ron Miller was a staple around Clinton High School baseball for years. He was the fountain of wisdom, the tree of knowledge. He was a great friend and mentor to all the coaches at CHS, past and present, and he's a poet. And I put a quote there from Robert E. Howard, said, a great poet is greater than any king. And so here's a sampling from one of the masterpieces from King Ron. And it says, there once was a man from Nantucket. I said, no, I can't print that one. But here's what he said about my son, Josh, and his nasty split-finger fastball. This is in the 2008 playoffs when Clinton High School is rolling through the playoffs, beating Northwest Rankin for the first time, beating Tupelo in the first game of that series. But here's his poem here. He says, there once was a pitcher named Clarke who kept opposing hitters in the dark. It was useless to swang when he whipped out that thang because its bite was much worse than its bark. To me, that was a priceless story about a baseball guy. And so I made a notation. A lot of the stories that I write, I'll make some notation and some life lessons on some of it. But this was my summary of his poetry. I said, genius poetry. It's amazing how Clarke and dark just happened to rhyme. The hitters were not usually in the dark because they knew what was coming and they still couldn't hit it. Swang and thang was a great analogy of the hitter versus the pitcher. And breaking pitches of all kinds were described by the term of bite, late, sharp movement, or sinking action. And that thang, I talk about that split finger fastball, that thang's bite was much worse than his bark, I'll tell you that. Mm-hmm. So that's one story that I wanted to start off with. It was just it's not just about my teams. It's a lot about my teams, but just those kind of things, including, games that my son played in, even some games that I was doing a Mayberry play and didn't get to see my son pitch in the biggest game of his life because I was obligated to be Andy Taylor in a fundraiser months in advance before they ever went to the playoffs. Mm. So we used a text messaging backstage. We'd get through with the scene, go check on the game, go back.
Oh my goodness!
I call that article the greatest game I never saw, and that's somewhere in the deal there. I don't know exactly where it's planted. The second article, number 2, JT, on that first 1 through 10, talks about the big cojones, and it's talking about Warren Guerrero finally receiving. Click on that link if you would, and it shows Warren 36 years later in a picture. There he is. That's Warren pitching. That's the state championship, and there's Warren in my den receiving his long-awaited ball sack keychain. Toughest big game pitcher in the history of Hines Community College, right there, Warren Guerrero, good friend. So that's 2. I know you're in a hurry, so let's clip through a couple more real quick. And you didn't tell me when we're done.
Take your time. I'm enjoying every bit of it.
The third one was about a guy named Higgy. His name is Glenn Higdon. He played for D.M. Howie in high school. He was a manager at Hines in 1982. When Marchant came in there, we didn't have a lot of pitching, so he brought him on. And he was just a curveball pitcher, didn't throw very hard. But he ended up pitching 110 innings. And he won 13 games, which is still a Hines record with major leaguer Chad Bradford. And he had, for a starting pitcher with 110 innings, an earned run average of 0.95 over the course of the season. Unheard of, unbelievable for a guy that did not throw hard and threw mostly breaking pitches. Glenn Higdon pitched doubleheaders. He pitched both games of doubleheaders. And it was he's a historical Hines guy that was never going to play any other year than that 1 year. And then here's where I'm making fun of Coach Perry. In article number 4, it's called Moose and Stew. And Stew, and I'm talking about Stuart Clyburn there. And it says there that my high school baseball coach was a legendary Bill Moose Perry. He was the clone of another Mississippi high school baseball coaching legend, D.M. Howie. They were 2 of a kind. And then Clarke became 3 of a kind for a little while. In 1974, they won the state championship and were 29-1. And the question I ask at the bottom of the article is his coaching strategy for the season, ? Pitch Stuart Clyburn every game. That's it. That's all he did. He didn't have to do anything else. And the other articles I put in there about that championship there, Stuart did win 9 out of 10 of the district games and probably most of the games that we won. That's quite a winning formula. And I've got to say I would do the same thing. Yes.
Hey, JT, put Stan Stewart's picture up there. There you go.
Yeah, that's the Forest Hill Superstars right there. Absolutely.
You've got a signed ball by Stan Clyburn, don't you?
I do. Dad probably does too. He gave them away. But Stan was a catcher at Hines as a freshman. I was the catcher at Hines before Stan, in the same day, took my job and my girlfriend. Same day. That's my Stan Clyburn story. That's a true story. I told Stan about that 30 years later. He said, "Who was the girl?" He didn't even remember who the girl was. And it broke my heart. But he took my catcher's job. I became a first baseman.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Rick, have you ever heard the story about John Grisham and Stewart?
No, I have not. No.
John Grisham, the multi-millionaire author. Okay. He wanted to play for Boo Ferris at Delta State.
Right.
Well, by all accounts, he was a great little ball player, really good hitter of everything except curveballs.
Yes.
And Boo Ferris told John Grisham that if he could hit Stuart Clyburn, he would give him a spot on the team.
Go write a book.
That's what ended up happening. And,
that's exactly right. Yeah, he was great.
John Grisham to this day will tell everybody I owe my writing career to Stuart Clyburn.
Listen, these old players like Stuart back in those days, they put in the innings. They were the Nolan Ryans of the world that weren't on pitch counts and they weren't babyfied and stuff like that. But hey, a couple of quickies if you don't mind. Number 5, lightning strikes. I had a pitcher named Steve Bourgeois, who was a transfer, hard-throwing right-hander that ended up signing with the San Francisco Giants. And one of the 3 Hines guys that played in the big leagues. He played briefly. But during the 92 season when he played for me, he was struggling. We weren't winning very much and stuff. And so he's always talking about getting drafted, going to the big leagues and stuff like that. So we had a frank conversation with him and a bunch of other pitchers. And I said, listen, you got a better chance to be struck by lightning than to make it to the major leagues. So why don't you just try to help us win some games? And I was just pleading to him to help us win sometimes. several years later, this was in 1996 or something. We don't have cell phones. My home phone rings. My landline phone rings. I pick it up, and he's an old Cajun guy we called him Boo. And I picked up the phone and said, hello. And he said, Coach, this is Boo. I said, Boo. And he said, I just got struck by lightning. So if you think they don't listen to what you say, they do. And he made it to the big leagues, and he pitched against the Braves that night on TBS. And it was the greatest thing. Look at this one above that. Number 6 talks about the spaceman. The spaceman is Bill Lee, the guy who pitched for against the Reds and in the Red Sox in the World Series in '75. His son was Andy Lee. He was one of my players. And so one day, Bill Lee showed up at our park wearing a Mao Zedong T-shirt and carrying wooden bats he was trying to sell. That's Bill Lee, the spaceman, and Andy Lee, his son. And we went in my office and we talked in person about that picture below there where Tony Perez hit his ephus pitch over the big green monster. He said, yeah, I threw it to him 3 times in a row. That was probably a mistake. And he blamed it on the catcher, Carlton Fisk, who's a Hall of Famer. He said, I don't usually throw the ephus from the stretch. It's usually from the windup with a double pump. And it was just priceless, just some things that happened to a baseball coach during his career. That was absolutely awesome. And then I'll be through in just a second. I know you're fixing to cut us off the air, and that's probably a good thing. One more. I'll stop with this one. This is called the trifecta. We're in the postseason play against Northwest Mississippi, and we're playing at Colin. And Stacy Williams was my center fielder. He's a great center fielder. And in this particular game, we beat Northwest 20-13. We always had slugfest. First game of a regional tournament, 20-13. Stacy Williams hit 3 home runs in that game. He hit a home run to left field early in the game. He hit a home run over the flag in center field later. And late in the game, he hit a ball off the right field fair pole for his 3rd home run and drove in 9 of the 20 runs. After the game, Donnie Castle was the coach. Greatest guy. He comes up to me. He said, man, that guy was something else. He said, how many home runs has he hit? And I deadpanned him. I said, 3 for the season. 3. It was really 5 to tell the truth, but I just couldn't resist saying it was just 3. And I've had several games during the years where the biggest home runs ever hit was the guy's first home run of the season to win a game or to move on from that. But that's just a sampling of just a few of a billion stories we've got. And some are real baseball stories that happened after baseball. Some are baseball stories. Some are personal stories about my kids, other coaches. I even wrote a story last year about Shohei Ohtani, saying that he's a full-time pitcher and a full-time hitter. He needs to be paid accordingly with a contract, which he got from the Dodgers this year at $70 million a year, not even pitching this year.
Wow.
Hey, Rick,
yes.
Rick, look, we're not going to cut you off, but here's what I do want you to do. Number one, I can tell you right now, you are the hottest thing on the internet tonight, right now.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I can tell you that. But number two, before we do cut off, and we do have to end sometime tonight.
Yes, we'll do it right now.
No.
Yes.
We want to hear at least a little bit about your Mayberry ministry.
Mayberry Ministries, man. I was a baseball coach for 30-something years, and I was Andy Taylor in Mayberry Ministries for 20 years. It started back in the fall of 1997. And Paula Hutto is the person that put it all together, a member of our church, Woodville Heights Baptist Church in South Jackson on Cooper Road. And she was a member of the choir, and she was in charge of dramas and stuff like that. They were going to do a one-night play to raise money for the youth group, so we wouldn't have to do spaghetti dinners and raffles and things
car
of that nature.
washes, things like that.
And she'd done a program before, a takeoff on Green Acres, when the real Ebb, what's his name, Tom Lester, actually came that night to speak at that performance. But anyway, we started this play, and she sat in the choir on Sunday morning and was picking out the cast as she was in the choir. And I was a baseball coach in the summertime, and I very rarely showed to Woodville Heights. And I came in one Sunday, and she said, there's Andy Taylor right there. And I thought she had lost her mind because I wasn't a real big Mayberry kind of guy. But anyway, we put on a stage version of the Andy Griffith Show. And for the next 20 years, we did over 200 shows as the main group. We also did probably about 50, 60 shows as a smaller group with me and Barney and Andy, or sometimes Andy himself. We went into a nursing home one time, me and Barney, dressed as Andy and Barney, and I went up to the little lady sitting up the front, and I said, "Sweetheart, do you know who we are?" And she says, "No, but if you go to the front desk, they'll tell you." Real stuff. I'll finish that a bit. We were doing a show at Catherine's Village for some elderly folks, and I'm gonna lose my battery. That'll get me off the air. And just real quickly, I'm doing an Andy Griffith's monologue of what it was football. That's about a 6.5 minute comedy bit that nobody that I know ever laughed at it. So I'm doing it for some reason to a bunch of 90-year-olds at Lake Catherine Village. And I got to the very end and I could not remember the last line. There was a little lady that when we walked in the room, she was asleep on the front row. And she never woke up until I couldn't remember that line. And she woke up, raised her head up, gave me the punchline, and went right back to sleep. That's a true story. Some crazy stuff. And I was a big boy back in those days. And I went backstage one night and some little lady came up and said she enjoyed the show. She said, and she whispered in my ear so as not to hurt my feelings. She said, "I don't remember Andy being such a big boy." There's Andy, a big boy. I was quite a big boy at that particular time. There's Otis Campbell. There's Barney Fife. We did 200 shows. We raised probably $750,000 for churches, their ministries, and their missions over the years. And that's my son. Back up to that if you could, JT. That's my son, Jake, who played Opie at 5 years old when he couldn't even read himself. He was telling us what our lines were. And he was a great, great Opie. Now he runs my real estate company. Don't tell anybody that, but he's 25 years old now. We dyed his hair every night. My wife's a hairstylist and dyed his hair every time he was Opie. And we're doing a little monologue. We used to do a monologue when we'd go out there. And I would look out in the audience and I'd say, "Opie, look at, have you ever seen a crowd this big? Have you ever seen so many people in your life?" He said, "I just saw Goober." And I said, "Well, no, Goober's in the back. He'll be out in a few minutes." And he'd point at the preacher or somebody and say, "Well, there he is right there." He said, there he is right there. I said, "That's not Goober. That's the preacher." Whatever. He sure looks like Goober and stuff like that. But I would tell the audience that when we were walking in, I wanted to know that Opie's not a natural redhead. And when we were walking in, I noticed some of you ladies weren't natural redheads either. And when I got through with that, I told him that was spray on paint. And he said, "My Paul's not a natural brown head either. If he didn't dye his hair, he'd be doing Matlock." So it was just, I set him up with those lines. But anyway, we did those shows for 20 years and it was a blessing. And we all got too old to do it anymore. And some original, I always said that, when the first person dies, we'll stop doing it. But we died on stage every single night because it was a Carol Burnett version of the Andy Griffith Show. And we laughed and we laughed and we made people laugh. And comedy, laughter is the best medicine. And I still have great memories of doing that. We could probably still do it if we wanted to, but we're probably not. But anyway, there's that.
Well, Rick, it has been a wonderful time with you. I don't know if we've laughed this much on the Nobody's Business podcast yet. Just, take the last couple of minutes and let people know what you've got going on and what you're working on, anything you want to plug in, what, business wise or interest wise, what you got going on.
Well, absolutely. Somebody asked me one time, do you have any regrets in your coaching career? I said, I have no regrets in my coaching career until maybe in the last couple of years. Well, I said, yeah, I really do have one regret in my coaching career. And it is that I did not use my position of power to share the gospel of Jesus Christ as well as I should have with my players and everybody that I got to see. And several years ago, a good friend of mine that I'd known for years passed away. And somebody called me and said, was he a Christian? And I said, well, I'll put it to you this way. I've known him for a long time. We've had a lot of conversations, and neither one of us ever mentioned the name Jesus one time. And so I was real concerned about that. So I've been working on a project. This project is I have projects that last for 10 years and sometimes they don't get finished, but it was called the Gospel Truth app. And it was an app that was really trying to put everything you needed to know about Christianity and the good news of Jesus Christ right there on a quick app that you could share it with your friends through an app. And so we're working on that. It's called the Gospel of Truth because we're sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. That's what gospel means. And the truth is God's truth. It's absolute and indisputable. And so we're trying to get this app out there so we can start kind of sharing the gospel so that people can get into the Word and the Holy Spirit can use that and bring more people to Christ. That's one thing that we're doing. I'm writing a book called The Attitude Rules. I'd love to share that with you one day. I think attitude is the most important ingredient for success in life, and I've got a book ready to go. It's some really, really great stuff. And other than that, I chase grandkids most of the time. We have fun. We're truly blessed. I want to make sure that everybody knows that I'm a Christian. I'm a born-again believer. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. And I am a child of the one true and the only living God. And I'm not ashamed of it in any way. And I want to share it with anybody that'll hear it, and even some people on a podcast that might not want to hear it. It's the truth. And if it's the truth, we're doing everybody an injustice by not sharing that truth, just so we'll be nice and not hurt somebody's feelings. So we want to share the gospel. We want to talk a lot about Jesus. So we say praise God around here a lot. We say thank you, Jesus, quite a bit. So thank you for letting me share that. And maybe one time we can come back and spend some time on that. I hope to have that app. I have that app ready to go as a beta kind of sample thing, but still, it's a Holy Spirit project. I didn't write it myself. I just kind of, not that I'm an apostle or anybody that wrote the Bible, but God kind of said, say this, say it this way, do this, simplify it, say this, tell everybody who I am. A lot of people don't really know that this is the Creator God, the uncaused first cause of creation. A lot of people don't really realize that. A lot of people don't really realize who Satan is. That Satan is the enemy of God. He's a fallen angel named Lucifer. A lot of people don't understand the first sin and the fall of man with Adam and Eve, what that was all about, the battle between good and evil, which we're experiencing even right now. And so there are a lot of things that people, you can open the Bible and it's the greatest book ever written, but it's hard to find the gospel. The Roman road jumps to 4 different verses and 4 different chapters, and it's hard to put that together when you're not a believer. And so that's what the app's trying to do. And I appreciate the opportunity to share that a little bit tonight. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much. I know we ran over time. That's 1 hour and 11 minutes. Sorry about that, but I told you.
No, we have
we've gone a lot longer. So
yes, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Rick, I just want to say, you might as well get ready. We're going to have you back on. I mean,
let's do it. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. It's great to talk to you again, Keith. It's been so long. And I think we had a situation one year when you were a coach in a youth league at Newland Spencer Field, and Tommy Groves and I were umpires. And you didn't like one of Tommy's calls.
Ooh,
and got on his case.
And I think remember that.
Mr. Rabbit Ears here got on your case. And I apologize to you for that. And JT, what a great job you're doing putting all that together. I appreciate that. And your lovely wife, I'm going to buy one of her famous paintings for my house, for my office here. And but anyway, I'll give you a tour around the office here and show you some things here next time we get together. Okay.
That could certainly be on the agenda. Rick, so much.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We've had such a great time, and boy, I knew you had the stories because I've been tapping into them a little bit here and a little bit there, and yes, it's been so great to reconnect with you guys. And man, it's just so much fun. Looking forward to doing it again real soon.
Thank you so much. God bless you guys. Okay.
Just want to say thank you to all our followers who watched us tonight, our fellow nobodies. Visit rickclarke.com. Visit the Diary of a Mad Baseball Coach.com to look at some of his stories. They're very interesting reads. We've been cracking up talking about them before the show. And a special thank you to Stretch Med and Sonara Shelton Fine Art for sponsoring the show today. Y'all have a great Thursday, and we'll see y'all next week. Thanks again, Rick, for hopping on with us, bud. It was a blast.
Thank you so much. Enjoyed it.
We're going to have you back, Rick, as soon as we can.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, sir.
All right. Good night. Good night, everybody.